The most destructive force is a man that does not know how to live properly. Misguided. Unaware of his own power. Unaware of his own evil. We burn down nations in pursuit of greatness, in the pursuit of what we think is good. Thousands die because we are misguided. Because we are unaware, we mistreat others. We mistreat ourselves. We disrespect our body. We disrespect our spirit. Because of this unawareness, we are led to ruin, destruction, drugs, partying, greed, egotism. Because of this unawareness, we shy away. We cower. We never understand and we never realize how amazing we are. How good life can be. How happy we can be. We never realize that we're not truly living because we are trapped in a box. And because of this unawareness, as a young man, I was lost. I was scared. I was anxious. I felt trapped. I felt weak. I felt like there was nothing for me. There was no hope for me. There was no direction for me. And I was powerless to all of this. And I was desperate for answers. And I was looking everywhere for answers. And I found the answer eventually. But this is why men need Stoicism. Why young men need Stoicism more now than ever. Because at that time, when I was a young man and I was scared, I was vulnerable, I was desperate for answers. I would have gone to anyone that seemed like they could provide me with what I was missing. And I think today, luckily, I was at that point just before the boom of social media. But if in my place of desperation and darkness, if I came across an influencer that had everything that I lacked, every problem, every difficulty I had, or the darkness I was enveloped in, if there was an influencer that had all of these things that I was lacking, and they provided the light, and they also had a huge following, and they was charismatic, they was funny, they seemed intelligent, and they said they had the answer for me, I probably would have followed them. And the trajectory of my life wouldn't be the same one I'm currently on. It could have gone a very wrong way, which I've seen happen to many young men. But luckily for me, I was catching the bus at 4 a.m. and my mum recommended to read books because I had all this time to kill. So I decided to read books. And I was reading many books on psychology and addiction and rehabilitation. And somewhere along the lines, I find this book called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I was around 17, 18. And I find the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And I start reading it. And this great emperor, the philosopher king, he wrote this diary for himself. It was a way for him to deal with the difficulties of the world. You know, he was in a stressful situation as emperor of Rome during Pax Romana, the golden age of the Roman Empire. His death ushered in the fall of the Pax Romana, or the fall of Rome. And he lived with great sickness his whole life, great pain. He lived during the Marcomannic Wars, where he lost many close friends, many of his people. He faced the enemy daily. And he faced the Antonine Plague, where countless died. And he faced the death of 7 of his own children. And horrible rumors and happenings about his wife. He had a hard life. And he had the answers. And he got these answers from a wealthy merchant who was shipwrecked and lost everything. And this wealthy merchant washed ashore in Athens, went to the Temple of Apollo, and from the Oracle of Delphi received a message. To become the shade of dead men. And quite cryptic. And this was the beginning of Stoicism. And, you know, when I started to learn these things from Marcus Aurelius, I found the light. I found direction. I found my confidence. I noticed my anxiety was going down. My helplessness was disappearing. The darkness no longer enveloped me. I could see things. I felt strength. And I remember reading a quote, "To be like the rock that the waves crash upon, it stands unmoved in the raging of the sea." When I read that, I felt I was being washed around and drowning in my life. And after reading the meditations, I felt like that rock in a way. Not straight away. So it took me from that point almost a decade of reading the ancient literature of the great Stoics and implementing it into my life, testing these principles and practices and exercises, testing them daily and monitoring them and thinking about the problems in my life and seeing how these solutions from the Stoics can help fix my problems. And it did help fix my problems. And for this time of growth through Stoicism, I monitored how I felt. I monitored the things I did, the effects they had on me. I kept track of this story that I was living. And I made notes of the things that helped me and how they helped me. And, you know, it took me 10 years. I don't think it needs to take someone that long. But I'll explain simply the most important aspects of Stoicism that young men need so that they don't get lost, so they can find their confidence, they can find their direction, and they can also not just be good men, but they can be good members of this society that we're in. So, and also this decade-long journey, that my book, that's kind of what I chronicle through anecdotes of my life and through recalling the certain exercises I did and simplifying this decade of learning Stoicism and practicing Stoicism into a short book. That is how this book came to be. I wanted someone to have that transformation. It took me a decade, and I wanted to condense it to just a book, a 4-hour read or 3-hour read or a 4-hour audiobook that I recorded. But the simple points are this. Number one is having responsibility. Just being aware that you are responsible for your life. You're responsible for your actions. And this comes down to the dichotomy of control. And Epictetus says some things are within our power, others are not. Within our power are our opinion, motivation, desire, and aversion. And in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Now, we don't need to know what's not within our power, because everything else is not within our power. So the point is, when I was lost and scared and felt like the world was against me, the world's not in my power. The world wasn't against me. The world just is. It's just happening. But what was in my power is how I respond to the world. And I remember when I understood the dichotomy of control, I realized I didn't control people. Why am I getting so upset and angry about the way people behave? And I didn't control the world. What I do control is I was going down this dark spiral every single day. In my head, I kept thinking these thoughts. And yes, thoughts intrude on you. But I had the power to latch onto them and give them voice, give them justification. And I decided I was no longer going to do that. So I started to think more positively, go on the upward spiral, which was difficult. It took a very long time. And certain exercises and principles from Stoicism over my time, I learned that the dichotomy of control is fact. I think the most important thing to help us not get misguided, though, is the understanding of what is good and what is bad. Because if we see that wealth and respect are good, then we're willing to do bad to get to these things. And that is what most men do. They see greatness as the ultimate good. They want to do something great. They want to achieve something great, something beyond them. They want their legacy to live on beyond them. So we are bad in the current world. We disrespect the loved ones around us in pursuit of this greater good. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor, he said that there is no pursuit better than that of being a good man. You know, everyone wants to be a great emperor. He just wanted to be a good man, which ultimately led to him being the last great emperor of Rome, or the philosopher king. So what is good? The Stoics had a structure that good is virtue. Virtue alone is good. Vice alone is bad. And everything else, like money, wealth, all these kind of things, health, they are indifferent. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad. The health of an evil dictator or an evil tyrant can be used for bad. The wealth of a greedy businessman that's making others suffer, that is bad. But the wealth and health of a philanthropist that helps people is good. So virtue alone is good, and this is what you need to know. Wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. And these are the things that are within your control. This is what exists inside you. You control whether you want to apply these things to the world. You want to apply these to certain situations. And so you need all four of them. The Stoics thought that justice is the crowning virtue. That without justice, everything else is for selfish gain. So we have these four virtues that we control. And the reason Stoics seen it as good is because, as Viktor Frankl says, you know, Viktor Frankl was a famous neurologist. He was a Holocaust survivor. He wrote one of the most sold books of all time, Man's Search for Meaning, one of the greatest books I've ever read. And that was about his time in the concentration camps, his observations of how to find meaning. He said, everything can be taken from man except one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose how to respond in any given circumstance, to choose one's own way. And this is virtue, this is your character, that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what happens, you can always choose to act upon these. You can't always choose to be rich or successful or even respected. You can try for these things, but you know, you see certain good people do great things and people get jealous and make lies about them and they lose that respect. Rich people lose their wealth in an economical crisis. So we know what we control. We know what to move towards God. So we have a foundation of life, of how to live a good life. And I think this is what young men need. And then we have, and I won't get into it too much because I just want to give the fundamentals here. I wrote about all this in the book. But we have the understandings like amor fati and memento mori, which when this is just tied, when you fully understand these concepts, because it's easy to say memento mori, remember mortality, remember death. It's easy to say amor fati, to love your fate. But to truly understand what these things mean, I think amor fati is the greatest mindset ever. And I've been learning a lot about Taoism and Zen, and non-duality, and all these teachings, and all these spiritual and religious teachings. And fundamentally, it all comes down to amor fati, which through these spiritual pathways and religious pathways can be quite confusing or hard to get to. But the Stoics wrote in such an understandable manner, such a practical manner, that I think it's why this is such a good guidance for young men. It's a good voice. It's a good mentor. And I just wish that everyone could at least see the true Stoicism, not this fake stuff that you're seeing all online. But Stoicism is about being emotionless and cold and callous and an island and selfish. It's not. Stoicism is about others. And it's about our role in this world. It's about finding our place and our strength in this world and our voice. So that's why young men need real Stoicism. And this video is not just directed at young men. Most of my audience is actually elderly men and women. The majority are over the ages of 50, 60, 70. But I wanted to make this video for young men because I remember that time very vividly. And I remember how hard it was to find anything, find direction. You felt so hopeless and lost. And I'm seeing it now, it's becoming more of a problem because these people that are lost are finding guidance, but from the wrong ways. Stoicism, you don't have to become a perfect Stoic. You don't have to incorporate into, like I did, into a decade of your life. But you need it to build foundation off. I don't like cuts, but the camera just cut out. I tried to record these things in one take. So I'm really thinking and not just scripting or coming up with things for YouTube. This is for people who felt like I did. So Stoicism is grounded, it's practical, it's easy to understand, it makes sense, and it can give you direction. And I don't think this video, I didn't plan for this video to help, directly help. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video was to interest you in Stoicism. And from here, I can give you real help. Number one, you can read the ancient literature. That is good, although it's kind of hard to understand. It takes a while to understand, but that is how I did it. The Meditations, my copy, I've been reading for over a decade, and it looks like a piece of garbage because it's just that destroyed. But that's how I learned it. I do wish I had a simpler introduction to Stoicism, so I understood it better. And that's what this was, kind of. That was not the main intention, actually, but what I've realized from people who have given it reviews and said it's changed their life, they said they didn't understand Stoicism. They tried, they couldn't understand it, and this was the best introduction. When they got this, they were like, oh, I get it. It's practical. So you can read the ancient Stoics, you can read a modern book that simplifies the teachings, that makes it practical. There's not many of them, actually. And Donald Robertson, while he's my favorite author, and I would recommend How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It's very good. But his books, I do believe, I read his books a lot. They're a bit more advanced. They take a lot of understanding, I think. Ryan Holiday, he very specific topics like on ego, or on justice, or on courage, very specific. So once you start learning about Stoicism, maybe you can pick a topic you want to read. Massimo Pigliucci, very well researched, very good knowledge. Brittany Polat, her books are great. I think hers, I've read two of them. One's very specific, is on parenting. I like that. And then the other is on virtue. It's very, very specific, very in depth. The depth of that book is crazy, but it's in a very specific topic. My book is, just so you understand, it's like from my point of view, and I do use stories, famous stories of the ancient Stoics or people throughout history or famous philosophers as well. But many of it is my personal anecdotes and how I used these teachings in my life. So each chapter is kind of broken down into like what is good, or finding your power. These things, that little voice in your head, the truth of God. Little is truly needed. Memento mori, amor fati. These things, they're broken down into like my stories, how I use them in my life to get over my problems. So you can kind of understand how it's applicable, which is unique. So hopefully this video does introduce you to Stoicism, and you can read a book. Most of the books are very short. Meditations is relatively short. The Enchiridion, short. Letters from a Stoic is short. My book, the audiobook, is like 4 hours long, which is relatively short. Just a few bus journeys, or a season of Is It Cake? Maybe. It's less than a season. The holiday special, I think it's like 4 episodes. Or 2 films, or 1 Lord of the Rings. Hopefully, I just wanted to give you direction, and it's coming up to Christmas. You might know some young men that need guidance. Maybe introduce them to Stoicism, get them a Stoic book, give them that guidance, and you might just help them steer them off the right track. Because the reason Stoicism works very well with people is because it's seen as a cool thing. These teachers like Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, Epictetus, the slave turned philosopher, Zeno, the wealthy merchant, was shipwrecked and climbed up to the temple of Apollo and spoke to the Delphic oracle. These people are seen throughout history as cool, strong, courageous, amazing, and charismatic and cool. So it's like what we're seeing today with these influencers, but they had something that was based on real knowledge, real wisdom, and true good. So hopefully that helps. And have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you for watching.
Quick word from our sponsor, Huel. Huel is a quick, affordable, nutritiously complete food with everything that your body needs. I really like Huel. When I was writing my book, I was using Huel to power me through every single day. When I had my daily greens, when I had my meals, when I had my shakes, it stopped me from going to the shop, buying a load of rubbish, buying a load of unhealthy food, wasting loads of money. And these things do add up. Those quick journeys to the shop every day, the money adds up, the unhealthy foods add up, the wasted time adds up. So if I ever get those cravings, I grab a Huel and it fills my cravings. I feel good, it tastes delicious, it's quick and easy. And if you have any interest in the Huel products, then check the link in the description.